No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 105. And please click to subscribe to our brand new independent news source. Turn on the notification bell and then you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Today, a very important uncancelled interview. Raymond Connolly, the Conservative councillor husband of Lucy Connolly, who you'll remember is languishing behind bars in prison after being sentenced to 2.5 years for a tweet on the day of the Southport Massacre, joins me live. Now, Raymond has not spoken before, apart from in a very brief appearance outside court on the day Lucy was found guilty. So this interview matters. Don't go anywhere. I will set it all up for you next in my digest. Also coming up on the show today, Father Calvin Robinson hits out at the commercialisation of suicide as assisted dying is paused to become legal after just a 5-hour debate on Friday. And Tommy Robinson supporters take on Talk TV for its presenter Peter Cardwell's description of the journalist and activist as racist.
Relationships, they're slandering. During lockdown, it was no different if you didn't comply, if you didn't wear a mask. And who pushed that agenda? None other than pig vomit in there, Piers Morgan. And as for you, Cardwell, calling Robinson a racist, you owe the British public and Tommy Robinson an apology.
Then in the Uncancelled Aftershow, Samantha Markle gives an exclusive broadcast interview about her sister Meghan as she turns 60 and very sadly suffers the loss of her mother. Now remember, the Uncancelled Aftershow now broadcast exclusively daily and on demand on Substack. We've got a Black Friday sale running. Actually, this is the biggest sale that we've ever had for Outspoken. 30% off. Which means you get access to my exclusive reporting, the after show every day, Monday to Friday, my columns, live chats on the Substack app from just £3.50 plus VAT as a result of this Black Friday sale. So I would absolutely love your support. www.outspoken.live. You can also register for free because this is all about building a community that has never been so important. But now, let's go. I have absolutely no doubt that Lucy Connolly is a political prisoner. On the day of the Southport Massacre, she inartfully expressed the visceral anger so many of us were feeling about the fact 3 young girls had been butchered to death at a Taylor Swift dance class. Maybe her post on X took it too far. I mean, she knew that. She deleted it. She swiftly regretted it. But it is very clear to me that she had not incited any specific violence, and her main call, which was for mass deportations of illegals, is actually a mainstream view in America under Donald Trump, even if the elite class in Britain view it as some sort of hate crime. Critically in that post, Lucy wrote, "I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure." And that's because Lucy knows from the most brutal and the most traumatic personal experience what it's like to lose a child in a tragedy. Her beloved son, Harry Connolly, there he was, died at just 19 months old after shocking NHS failure, which resulted in an apology from Northampton General Hospital. And those photos there of Lucy with little Harry, we haven't seen before. As Lucy said at the inquest, she would never get over it. But was there any sense of perspective or empathy when her tweet, her post on X, saw her dragged through the British judiciary to make a point to all of us? Shut up or we'll lock you up. Of course not. Of course not. Look at the result. Lucy, a housewife, a childminder, a proud mother to a thriving 12-year-old, was immediately remanded in custody and sentenced to 31 months. That's 2.5 years behind bars. This was a barbaric sentence with a clear political purpose. Because Lucy, you see, is married to the popular West Northamptonshire Conservative councillor Raymond Connolly. So she became the perfect face of so-called social media hate crimes, driven away in that police van to serve an absurdly long sentence as paedophiles and women beaters avoid spending 1 day locked up. Make it make sense. I mean, as Elon Musk regularly points out, it doesn't. The UK is now some sort of tyrannical police state where free speech no longer exists. Look at today, at PMQs, where the Prime Minister, Tutir Khair, disturbingly wouldn't even rule out a blasphemy law that would make so-called Islamophobia illegal. This is being pushed by the Labour MP Tahir Ali.
November marks Islamophobia Awareness Month. Last year, the United Nations Human Rights Council adopted a resolution condemning the desecration of religious texts, including the Quran, despite opposition from the previous government. Acts of such mindless desecration only serve to fuel division and hatred within our society. Will the Prime Minister commit to introducing measures to prohibit the desecration of all religious texts and the prophets of the Abrahamic religions?
Can I agree with him that desecration is awful and I think should be condemned across the House? We are, as I said before, Mr. Speaker, committed to tackling all forms of hatred and division, including, of course, Islamophobia in all of its forms. Thank you.
Now, let's go back to Lucy Connolly. Like a loyal husband, Raymond stood by his wife. But, this is critical, he didn't support her tweet in any way and made clear that Lucy regretted it. He has been stoic and reselected to run for his seat as a Conservative councillor next month. So now, the campaign to unseat him using lawfare has predictably kicked off. The West Northamptonshire Council, this was leaked to local media, has started a code of conduct investigation for comments Raymond made in defence of his wife. So how did he defend his wife? He said she is a good person and not a racist. This investigation is sick and twisted. I have been in contact with Raymond since Lucy's arrest. He has always avoided speaking publicly about the case, apart from just those few words grabbed by Sly News outside the courthouse and now used against him. But I am delighted that today he has decided to break his silence on Outspoken. So now, the Uncancelled Interview. Raymond Connolly, it is so good to have you here today. And I guess we should start at the beginning before we talk about this despicable move to subvert democracy and get you booted from representing the people that you were elected to represent. So tell me first, Ray, when did you become aware of Lucy's tweet on the day of the Southport Massacre?
It was about a week later. It was. My son texted me, our oldest. He said, "Have you seen the? It's all kicking off on X, Dad." And I said, "I'm not on it, Tom." On Jack. I said, so he sent it off. He screenshotted it and sent a few things to me. And I said to Lucy, I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Oh, look, I put this on like a week ago, but somebody's screenshotted it and reposted it."
And that person also got locked up for doing that. And what was your immediate reaction when you saw the post?
Well, obviously, I was aware of that day when I come home, and obviously I came home from work. Lucy was crying at the house when I come in, and she explained to me what had happened. and just went through the they're saying on X, it was a terrorist attack or whatever. And I said, well, and I'm like, oh, I said, bloody nightmare, really. And then I just went and put the news on, and I could see it all on the news of what had happened with those poor children. And obviously, Lucy's in the house with the kids she's looking after, petrified.
And for Lucy, the loss of a child is obviously particularly raw, given what happened to your son, Harry Connolly. Look at him there. And he was just 19 months old when he died, Ray. And he died as a result of state failure. He was completely let down. You were both completely let down by the NHS. So I imagine the death of any child really impacts Lucy.
Yeah, she'd complained to, she'd even complained to members of parliament before about children what had been injured. I remember Jeremy Hunt, she was moaning about a case with a child, but it just seems to be, she would always, like, again, any children what are harmed, especially medical negligence, she would be up in arms and, on the laptop and usually
so she was like a lot of. Sorry, you finish your point, Ray.
I know she'd even have contact with the parents as well. She would have these people who were having a problem, who had a problem.
So that day, she was emotionally tormented, like so many of us were, to be honest, about what happened. A lot of us knew that we weren't being told the full truth. But she made this post on X, which would go on to change your lives. But what's so interesting is that, as you point out, there wasn't an immediate reaction to this. There seemed to be some sort of political campaign to get Lucy targeted by the police. My suspicion is that it is because she was married to you, a Conservative councillor. Do you have that same suspicion?
Well, obviously, Lucy was arrested that morning, and I went to walk the dog, and I got a phone call late that afternoon from the BBC, and a journalist from the BBC, and he said to me, he goes, "Hi Ray, I'm such and such from the BBC. I've drawn the short straw to call you. I wouldn't normally be having this conversation with you, but you are a Conservative councillor, so there's going to be some mileage on this." And that was from the BBC.
And when did the police get involved, Ray?
About a week later in the evening, they went and took Lucy away in late afternoon, and she came back around about 7 o'clock, I believe. And then they come and picked her up again the following morning.
And was that when she was remanded in custody?
Yeah, then she went to, that's to Bracknell's in the custody there.
At that point, Ray, did she have any idea that it was even a possibility that she could find herself locked up for 2 years?
Oh no, God, crikey, no. I mean, I think I've looked at, I've on X now, and I've seen the rhetoric, what's on there and whatever. So I don't think she ever thought this would happen. Of course not.
When did that reality hit for you and for her?
I think it was it would have been a sentencing, because obviously she pleaded guilty. She pleaded guilty because she felt she was obviously discussion with her legal team. She felt that she was probably good chance to be home by Christmas if she did. If she didn't plead guilty, she would probably be on, may not get bail, and then going into the new year, when a court date, other people wanted Lucy to plead not guilty and fight it in front of a jury, but she decided, after discussions with her other solicitor, that if she was to plead guilty, she worked it out in her head, because she was obviously in the prison at this time and speaking to the inmates. So she would worked out, she was told she'd get 2 years around that. But then obviously Lucy's working out with a guilty plea, a reduction in sentence, 40% and time served, that should be out before Christmas, with really close to it. But obviously, when she was sentenced, obviously the sentencing guidelines, I thought, you know, it was going to be around the 2-year mark. But when I heard the judge, Melbourne, start reading about the sentencing guidelines, I thought, oh, what's going on here?
The judge showed
I realised
no
that Lucy
mercy.
She'd made a mistake.
She'd made a mistake by being coerced into pleading guilty.
She should have. Well, I always wanted her to. You know, the other side of our legal team were going. You know, there was that Lucy would to plead not guilty, and they'd put a bail application in, and then they'd review it and go in front of a jury, because I felt Lucy would be in a better position. But she thought that she would be. It could be, you know, March, April time before she went in front of the jury if she wasn't granted bail. And because she'd already filed a bail application before, she kind of thought,
but that's sick. I mean, but right, this is sick. It is the most egregious example of two-tier justice. I mean, the Labour councillor who is on video threatening to slit people's throats, he pleaded not guilty. He has received bail. So are you very conscious of the fact that Lucy Connolly, your wife, was being made an example of?
I think I would have to say, of course, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, even afterwards, people, you know, the government want to frighten people. And you know, I guess that's what they've done. Obviously, they've got a housewife here whose criminal record is, I think, a driver awareness course, and all of a sudden she's walking around a wing with people who are doing life in prison for murder.
It's sick. It is genuinely sick and twisted. I've spoken so much about the case of Lucy and also Julie Sweeney, a very similar woman who is a carer, a grandmother, who received a similar sentence for a post on Facebook. Now, I believe they're political prisoners. Is that how you view your wife, Ray?
I think as time has gone by, pretty much so. I'd say most definitely. I think they've been really harsh on her. You know, I just, you know, I joked about it beforehand that, oh, you'll be coming with me when we do the community payback teams, and they come litter picking and painting with our teams. I thought that's what she might end up doing. I thought I had visions of her coming in painting and whatever, play parks and whatever.
Yeah, not even, you know, you wouldn't even believe that in the UK in 2024, a housewife would be sent to jail for 2.5 years, 31 months for posting on X. It is extraordinary. Now, you have a 12-year-old daughter. What happened, Ray? Tell me about the human cost of this, because as that dawning realization comes that Lucy's going to be behind bars for a very long time, I imagine your life was completely turned upside down.
Yeah, obviously it was difficult. Obviously, I'm looking at the financial aspect of you know, Lucy was self-employed, so no house. So, and obviously I've got the legal cost. Obviously I sold my car pretty much straight away. and borrowed money off of friends to pay for the solicitors and court cost, and obviously then the running of the house. I cancelled pretty much everything I do, and I kept everything what Edie does, the gymnastics, the golf, just try and make sure that she's everything is pretty much normal for her, so it's not a lot of disruption. So she, she realizes that her mum's not here, but she is only down the road in sort of, I keep saying to her, she's only down the road.
Has she been able to see her mum in jail?
Yeah. We've been to visit her. We have, and the children who she looked after have been there as well.
And what's Lucy's life like behind bars?
Well, she was petrified when she turned up, absolutely petrified, terrified. So she drove into the Peterborough, and they collected her there. And she was in a state. I mean, she said, she was like, oh, you can imagine. But two girls came and met her. I did meet these girls. I mean, they're both doing life in prison, they were, but they helped Lucy settle her in. And Lucy rang me that night. Obviously very tearful, distressed. But I said to her, because like obviously she was struggling because she was getting no medication. She was obviously on antidepressants, and she wasn't really getting anything like that. But then she's just settled in as best as she can, really, and so many incidents, which I can only think, fair play to Lucy, being in that environment, and the people she's with, the friends she's made, with the people on the wing have all the great time for her. Even the prison officers have great time for her. So she is somehow she's managed to really pull herself together.
Oh, thank God, because I had Mark Heath on the show last week, who was jailed for a social media post as well, although he pled not guilty, but he was remanded in custody. And within hours of entering prison, he was targeted by an Asian gang who beat him up horrifically. So Lucy has had no physical threats to her safety behind bars.
No. I mean, there's lots of incidents. I'm sure Lucy will write a book, but she was... all the girls in the prison know what's going on, and there was a girl who was coming into the prison. They knew it. She'd been moved from another prison. Obviously, she'd been in trouble there, and they were moving her to this prison because it was more of a disciplined area. And Lucy was in the canteen, and it's just like a school canteen. Everybody's eating, talking, and all of a sudden, you could hear a pin drop because this girl, I'll say P, I won't say what her name is, walked in. And Lucy said, she could see her. She was a black girl, very attractive, powerful looking girl. And she walked in, and everybody was like, oh my God. And then she looked at Lucy and walked over to Lucy, and Lucy was like, oh my God, because she was, what the hell? And she walked up, she goes, we've been talking about you. You're the lady in blue. Don't let them divide us. And that's what she said to her. But her and that girl now, and the other Jamaican and the other Jamaican, they're like real best of friends. They look after Lucy. They do all her hair for her, eyebrows. Lucy's doing the best she can in there. She is funny. She's obviously there's some homeless girls in there as well, and they've got no family to send money in. So Lucy gets me and her friends to send money in. So she does shops for them because they haven't got a job and they've got no family to send any money in. So she'll do shops for them and then get them extra food, sweets, makeup, toiletries, and they do like a weekly delivery. But obviously they've got no family, they've got no money. But I think that sort of camaraderie, Lucy, they've all kind of like congregated. They'll all go into Lucy's room, chatting, putting the world to rights.
Yeah, and probably talking, I imagine, a little bit about the state of the country. And so then, Ray, not only are you dealing with that, the emotional trauma of your wife behind bars, your young daughter no longer having her mum around every day, you've got all of that going on. And then the witch hunt begins. The witch hunt by the West Northamptonshire Council begins against you, and you find out that you are under investigation. Now, you are a democratically elected councillor. You have been reselected by the Conservative Party to fight your seat next year. So what the hell is the council playing at?
Yeah, I mean, letters, obviously, I've got emails sent to me, not very many actually. I mean, not really a lot about Lucy. It's just like, you better resign, you Tory scum. So, you know, people are frustrated. But I have a lot more, a far phenomenal amount of support. Even Lucy has people writing to her and asking me to write to her in prison or whatever. But I knew there was some letters had gone in, and the monitoring officer told me they're going to look at it and whatever, which hadn't a problem. She sent me a little email, and the trouble is I was waiting for them to come individually so I could answer, because what I said, obviously when the journalists get hold of it, they kind of put their own words together. Like when I spoke to the BBC, and they said about, this was like a couple of days after Lucy had been arrested, and they asked about, you know, they just said, you know, obviously they wanted to know if I was racist. And I'm like, and Lucy, and I said, look, I said, all I can say is that Lucy, she has obviously a childminder. She has kids from all over the world. I said Lithuania, Romania, Bangladesh, Somalia, and all over the world. And so she looks after these children and loves them like they're their own. But then obviously people change it. Some of the reports were like, you know, Lucy cannot be racist because she looks after Bangladeshi kids, those sort of things. But I didn't say that.
No, but at the end of the day, though, you know your wife, okay? And I believe you are entitled to say that she is a good person who isn't racist, if that is your belief, without your democratically held council seat being challenged.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I'll defend Lucy, and I have to, because when Lucy was going to trial, I had to do some character witnesses, and I thought, you know, who are the best people to be Lucy's character witness? And I thought, well, I went to the people who are going to be more exposed to racism. I mean, yeah, I'm at work, they call me names and whatever, you know, like you, whatever. But I don't take it personal. I don't see them as racist. So I got the emails from people who know about racism, because racism I don't. So I sent them to people from the Nigerian communities, from the Bangladeshi communities, Romanian, Latvian. They came back 100% supporting Lucy, supporting her, saying that basically, what a load of old rubbish. So they know about racism better than me, and I'll support them. So I couldn't support someone else telling me she is, when I've got people who know her and know about racism better than any of us. So I will always support those
Indeed.
parents.
And she's your wife, and she's the mother of your baby, and you stood by her, and I certainly have a huge amount of respect for that, and I believe most of the Outspoken family do. And in fact, I want to bring in a member of the Outspoken family now, Father Calvin Robinson, who has been listening to Raymond Connolly intensely. Father Calvin, what's your view on what Raymond has told us today?
It seems like a stitch-up. It seems like they clearly wanted to set an example from the beginning, and actually they're not evidence-informed. They're twisting every little fact they can do to make it fit the picture, to make it fit the narrative that they've already come up with. It's very, very sad, because our justice system is supposed to protect all of us, right? And it's supposed to be there for all of us, no matter our station in life, no matter our politics, no matter our faith. And in fact, it seems that it's, at the moment at least, there's a two-tiered system that is set out to protect a certain demographic and paint everyone else as the bad guys. There's only so long that can go ahead before it falls apart. It doesn't work. It's not realistic. It's not true. And so this whole situation is horrible. None of it should have happened.
Raymond, are you in touch at all? Because Calvin's completely right. None of this should have happened. And there are actually a lot of political prisoners now who the elite class in this country are ignoring, but Elon Musk isn't ignoring them. I'm not ignoring them. Calvin's not ignoring them. Social media isn't ignoring them. Have you been in touch, Raymond, with any other families of people who are going through something similar?
No, I'll be honest, I've just started looking at it now, really. Obviously, I know about these people, but obviously, I'll be honest, because of my position, I've tried to stay below the radar and not get involved. But obviously, since although my appeal was supposed to be strictly private and confidential, my complaint against me, obviously, it was obviously leaked to the press from, I guess, a member of that department, because they knew too much specific details, and obviously now it's all just blown up.
Yeah, so there is clearly a campaign against you, although the Conservative Party, I believe, have been supportive.
Yeah, they've been great. I've had the Conservative have, even the opposition party members as well, Lib Dem, Independents, and even the Labour, some of the Labour group, they've been supportive of me in this situation. So,
Calvin,
yeah.
Father Calvin, that makes me happy because, look, we're often quite critical of certain aspects of the Conservative Party, but we also know what it's like to be thrown under the bus when things get a little bit hot. And I actually think it's admirable of the Conservative Party to say, no, we support you. You're a very popular, successful councillor. You're in one of our safest seats and you can run next year.
Absolutely, this is spot on what they should be doing. I'm hoping this is a sign of change, because I was kicked out of the Conservative Party.
Yes.
Connor Tomlinson was kicked out. Cole Benjamin was kicked out, and even people without big profiles I know that have been kicked out for saying things that are conservative and or Christian. And so maybe this means the tide is turning, or maybe it's just the local level party is much better than the national party.
Raymond, what is the plan for Christmas? Because I believe Lucy was left pretty heartbroken at some news regarding that.
Yeah, she when she got sentenced, she was entitled to have, like, you can have like a day off, like a family visit, and you'd be picked up at 8 o'clock in the morning and you'd be returned at 5 o'clock. So she spoke to the internal probation officer about it, and he said, I don't think I can get you Christmas Day, Lucy, but I think we can do Christmas Eve. And she goes, okay. Well, she filled all the forms in and whatever to do that, and the process of how to get into that. And then she followed it up about a week and a half later and said, what's going on? And it was kind of like not getting involved. They were very quiet and cagey about it. And then she realised that something was wrong, and she was in the cell in her room crying, and she cried all day. But obviously this caused an alarm for the other people on the wing, because they said that this isn't like Lucy, this is a nightmare. And they all well, they weren't happy, the rest of the wing weren't. And eventually the prison officer said they will get the probation officer to speak to Lucy, and he did speak to her, and he said that it's not going to happen because they think that the press will be notified and they will want to speak to her, and if she didn't notify them, a neighbour would. But so obviously that's not going to happen. So
she's I mean, Calvin, it's two-tier justice, isn't it? It's two-tier justice. She's the wife of a Conservative Party politician. She's the face of Starmer's campaign to lock up the white working classes. We can't let her out. But don't worry when it comes to a paedophile or a woman beater. I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it, Calvin?
It's insane, the twists and turns in this story. It seems like Lucy's being punished because of who Raymond is, but Raymond's also being punished because of who Lucy is. You can't win in this situation, unfortunately. I'm laughing because it's so absurd, not because it's funny. And we need to put the pressure on the justice system and on the mainstream media to report this story fairly so that both Lucy and Raymond get justice that they are owed. All of us should all throughout points of our lives be under the assurance that if something goes wrong, we can trust the police, we can trust the judicial system, and that we have a fair and balanced society where everyone has equality under the law. If we think that because of our faith, our politics, or our outlook on life, we're going to get treated differently, or because of who we're married to, we're going to get treated differently, then people will act in a very different way, and that would break down the entire system that we have going here of law, fairness, and equality.
Totally. And Raymond, I'm so glad that you have spoken today. I know you've gone through such a tough time, but it is important that we have these conversations. And as Calvin says, start to change some of the rhetoric, because also it's very important, isn't it, Raymond, that once Lucy is released, she knows that she has a life to return to.
Like I said, of course, I mean, my job is to make sure, as a husband, to make sure she's okay and she gets home here safe and in good order and everything is salvageable around the house and with jobs wise and whatever.
Totally. Well, look, Raymond Connolly, stay in touch, pass on our love to Lucy, and hopefully there's a bit of a Christmas miracle and she'll get home. Raymond Connolly, thank you so much. Breaking right now, growing fears that legalized suicide will be voted through the House of Commons in the UK after just a 5-hour debate on Friday. Labour is changing the face of this country in many ways. No one expected this to happen so quickly. And I want to show you a video now at a tube station right near the Houses of Parliament, and you will see that suicide and this assisted dying is being commercialized. It is almost being fetishized in some way now with these advertisements promoting the need for this bill to pass. And this has obviously sparked quite an outrage, with Tim Stanley, the columnist for the Daily Telegraph, posting on X, "I'm glad they did this because this is where it ends. The moment capitalism gets into the death market, it'll become the next must-have product." And look, today I want to pass the floor over on this to Father Calvin Robinson, because, Father, a lot of people are seeking spiritual guidance, especially MPs who are torn on this, who are worried about this, but are maybe leaning towards voting for the bill. What's your message as to why they should not?
Because we have to look at these things logically. We have to look at these things with reason. And the other side will just push forward emotive arguments and anecdotes left, right, and center in order to break down our barriers and essentially blackmail us into doing this. Because they'll say things like, you know, I had a loved one and I didn't want my loved one to suffer. They had to suffer. It was awful. And of course, nobody wants their loved ones to suffer. Nobody does. It's horrible to go through that experience. Anyone that's had a loved one die can affirm that experience. However, what we need to do is look at helping people through their suffering, not removing their suffering. No one can live a life without suffering. It's part of the human experience. We are born, we suffer, we die, right? The Christian would say it's part of the sanctifying experience. It's getting us prepared for heaven. It's getting us from where we are to where we need to be. But even if you take Christianity out of it for a moment, it's about, do we love that person? Yes. So we make them comfortable. We help them. We already have palliative care. We have lots of things in this country that other countries don't have. But if they're not working well enough, Let's address those. Let's not just end the person's life, because there have been so many instances of people that have gone through this process and right at the last minute, they've wanted to change their mind. And sometimes the process has failed and we've heard their stories, but other times the process has gone ahead and we never hear their stories. There are instances where things do not work. There's a story in Switzerland of a death pod that malfunctioned. And we find out later during the autopsy that there are strangulation marks around the person's neck. We don't know what the ins and outs of that are. But either way, look, God decides when we're born, God decides when we die. If we put that in the hands of the state instead of our Lord and Savior, and then that means that the state has authority over when we are born and when we die. And at the outlet, it might seem great. It might seem, on the extremities, there are people that are going through extreme suffering and we want to end their suffering. But once we sign that legislation, once that becomes law of the land, that the state can dictate or the healthcare professionals can dictate when someone is to be killed, then that slippery slope is just the start of the journey. And we don't have to look too far afield. Canada is still part of the Commonwealth. They still have our king as their sovereign monarch, and they have euthanasia, assisted killing, assisted suicide, whatever we're going to call it. I don't care about the euphemisms. It's the process that I'm against. And so they have it. And so they started out, when someone's in extreme suffering, we're going to end their life. That's where they began. And now there have been so many cases I've talked about on my show back on the old platform of there was a veteran who couldn't afford housing. He was offered suicide. There was an elderly person who couldn't walk up the stairs, physically couldn't walk up, but couldn't afford a stair lift, was offered suicide. There's a teenager who's depressed. I mean, what teenager hasn't felt depressed at some point, was offered suicide. So the poor, the vulnerable, the burdens on society, and I use that in inverted commas because everyone feels like a burden at some point in their lives. And if you're vulnerable and you're innocent, why should you be offered death as a solution to a worldly problem? It's monstrous. And people will say there'll be protections in place. Yeah, there will be protections in place, but it doesn't matter because once this is on the legislation, once this is in our law, it will be twisted and manipulated. We already see every other law of the land being twisted and manipulated against the people at present. Do we trust our government and our National Health Service to have our best interests at heart at all times when they have massive bills to pay? They have millions and billions of pounds to find left, right and centre, and actually it's far cheaper to end our life than to keep us alive.
There's also, Calvin, the prospect of capitalism becoming a big part of the death market. And look, we already see in the Daily Telegraph this week that Dr. Philip Nitschke is ready to launch his very controversial invention of death pods in Britain if the assisted dying law passes. Your thoughts?
It makes me sick. I mean, there are so many things we talk about that I get angry about or passionate about, but this one just makes me feel physically sick, that people are trying to capitalize on state-sanctioned killing of vulnerable people. And that's exactly what this is. We can't talk about it any other way. We're already seeing that. So these billboards around Westminster, on the London Underground, which, I mean, first and foremost, how are they allowed when you're not allowed a skinny model in a bikini, but somehow you're allowed to promote death, for goodness sake? The moral compass of the people selecting these ads is ridiculous. But these are being pushed by Global. And I know you've been speaking to Charlotte Gill, who's put some good videos together. This is the one you're showing on screen now, I believe. And she's looked into this, and Global seem to be behind a lot of this push for death. They are bankrolling our good friend Carol Vorderman. They're bankrolling the Led by Donkeys. They're bankrolling, of course, newsagents. And so there's lots of far left activity being pushed in the United Kingdom by Global, much in the same way that George Soros pushes it in the United States. For some reason, there are dark forces at play here with people with a lot of money and a depopulation agenda that are pushing euthanasia at the same time that abortion is being pushed. And so at the start of our life and the end of our life, somehow the state wants to have control. And we can't take all of these things out of context. What's the biggest fight we're having in the United Kingdom right now? Farmers. Their land is being taken away from them. So it's all about, all of it comes down to power, how we live, when we live, how we feed ourselves when we're allowed to live. The state has way too much authority at the moment. It is like a communist regime. It terrifies me that if my mother gets old or my father gets old and they become disabled or they mentally incapable, that the state will be having a conversation with them about potentially ending their lives. And it will be pushed. People say it won't be pushed. It will be pushed. I know so many women already who've gone to the doctor because they've fallen pregnant in circumstances outside of their control, and abortion has been pushed as an option rather than offered as an option, or rather than having a conversation. You know, liberals will say it's a conversation, you can have a choice. I would say that choice is abhorrent, but either way, to have it pushed on vulnerable women is disgusting. And so if abortion is pushed at one end of the life, why wouldn't euthanasia be pushed at the other end of the life? Why wouldn't they say, well, you know what? You're right. You are suffering. You're not going to get better. Your life is going to be miserable from now on. You've got kids. You know, maybe you want to think about leaving them your estate while you still can. Get around inheritance tax. The government's pushing, etc., etc., etc. Maybe the best option is, or one of the options you could take is ending your life now. It's disgusting. It's evil. And actually, we want to help people live as long as they are naturally living. The whole premise of life is from conception until natural death, and that's the only good way to live.
You mentioned this great work that Charlotte Gill is doing, Father Calvin. There's also a really odd thing going on with Paul Brand from ITV. Now, do you remember Paul Brand was the guy who effectively is credited with driving Boris Johnson from office? He was completely obsessed about it. But he doesn't give a damn about focusing on terrible examples of corruption and lies from Labour MPs like Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, which I'll come to in 1 second. But Charlotte has done some real investigation into this and is showing that Paul Brand has actually become an activist for assisted dying. So she posts on X, look how many tweets Paul Brand has done about assisted dying. I actually stopped copying them as there were so many. This isn't normal. This isn't news. And what's so interesting, Calvin, is the posts that he makes are all in favour of assisted dying. So, for example, this poll by More in Common finding that the public apparently support assisted dying by 5-1. That's been debunked as soon as you show the public the details of the bill. He talks about Liz Kendall talking about assisted dying. He retweets Keir Starmer talking about it. It's very interesting, isn't it, that the media class, Father Calvin, have effectively decided to campaign on this issue.
We live in a death cult, don't we? Our society is so dark. Our population is decreasing rapidly. Our birth rate is 1.4. It used to be 2.4. It's gone down in the last couple of decades in that the mother and the father are no longer replacing themselves in the family. We have abortion as the biggest killer of people in the West. 250,000 babies are killed every year in the UK. And now we're talking about ending even more lives. Like, why, everywhere we look, are we killing and ending lives? Why are we not incentivizing the family? Why are we not encouraging people to have big families, to have children and to grow the nation and therefore grow the economy? Why are we pushing death on native Britons left, right and centre whilst having mass legal and illegal immigration at the same time? I mean, I am not a conspiracy theorist, I'm really not, but it does look like some kind of mass replacement theory is under play. It looks like the people with vested interests are making a killing somehow, and it always comes down to money. I don't know where the money trail leads to in this regard, but it always comes down to money.
Yeah, and literally making a killing, Calvin. Look, speaking of Rachel Reeves, I actually want to give credit right now to our former employers at GB News, because, Calvin, I have been saying for weeks, why has no mainstream media journalist, not one, put a question about Rachel Reeves' fake lives and her completely concocted CV and loads of other lies? Why has not one journalist in this country put the question to anyone representing Labour, anyone from the government? They certainly haven't asked Rachel Reeves, they haven't asked Starmer. Finally, GB News did ask a Labour minister. It was the Employment Minister, Alison McGovern, and it was Isabel Webster who was the journalist with the balls to do this. Let's take a look at the exchange, Calvin. I'll get you to react off the back.
What would you say to anybody who's thinking about doctoring their CV? Would that be considered within the rules? I ask because, of course, the Chancellor of the Exchequer has been found guilty of that, although facing no repercussions for it.
I'm really sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, because the Chancellor of the Exchequer is an extremely qualified person to be taking.
Yeah, but she lied on her LinkedIn as well, you know, claiming to have been an economist at the Bank of England when she worked in retail at HSBC. Totally different.
No, I'm sorry, but she was an economist at the Bank of England.
Yes, but not the dates that she claimed.
Qualified economist.
It was also while she was a trainee at university.
To do her job.
OK, so that's fine within the rules for any youngsters that want to get on.
She was a Bank of England economist. I'm not really sure what we're. I'm not really sure what we're arguing here over, because
you
I don't think
brought up
anybody
rules and people trying to get jobs. I was just checking whether or not that was permitted.
As I've said, people should stick to the rules. You've put to me some kind of allegation that Rachel Reeves is not an economist, when in fact she is, and she's a very well qualified person to be doing her job.
My allegation was about her changing her LinkedIn,
so actually,
which we know to be a fact. Anyway, we can move on because we're not progressing here.
Good on her, Father Calvin. Good on her for putting the question. Pathetic answer.
They don't like it up on the day. She did not like being asked that question. And of course, they always twist it. You've accused her of not being an economist. She's an economist. No, we're accusing her of lying on her CV and saying she was something that she wasn't at a time that she wasn't. It's very clear what happened. Don't try and weasel out of it. This is why people don't like politicians. They can never be straight up, can be. But yeah, fair play to Isabel Webster. Always liked Isabel Webster. As far as moderates go, she's a good one.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Father Calvin, stand by. Big row has broken out between Tommy Robinson and Talk TV, which we'll discuss in just 1 minute. You want to see this, let me tell you. But first, with the holidays creeping up faster than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you. And the discount for Black Friday on this is off the chart, so you're going to want to hear it. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at Family Dinner award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, it's like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. So let's dive into the goods. The Chairman Shaving, it's like Santa's elves made it just for you. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face and is gentle on the neck area, as if they had the gift of foresight. So go ahead, kiss that awkward jawline patch goodbye. No more pretending it doesn't exist while you hope nobody notices under the mistletoe. And if you want even more precision, on the right side of the bracket, there's a precision lock. When you lock it, the blade head sits firm so you can achieve a more precise shave. And here's something that's going to make your grooming routine even easier. The Chairman Pro is waterproof, so you can use it right in the shower. And the waterproof feature doesn't just make shaving easier, it also simplifies cleanup. Just a quick rinse under the sink and you're all set. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves either. It's powerful enough to tackle up to 5-day growth, making it perfect whether you're shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to go from Santa's beard to smooth as a snow angel. It even has a travel lock to make sure it doesn't accidentally turn on in your bag, and an LED spotlight to help you see every detail, ensuring nothing gets missed. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. It has everything you need to keep your face looking and feeling its best, all in one box. You can head on over to www.manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the code Outspoken for free shipping. And this week only, a bigger discount, 25% off to mark Black Friday. That's www.manscaped.com, and make sure you use the coupon code Outspoken at checkout. But now, back to the show. An extraordinary row has broken out between the imprisoned activist and citizen journalist Tommy Robinson and Talk TV or Talk Radio, Talk, my former employer, whatever it's called now, over claims on air that he is racist. Now, I'm going to show you just a moment an extraordinary protest that took place outside the offices of Talk, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, while the two men that seem to be particularly targeted by Tommy's activists, Piers Morgan and Peter Cardwell, were broadcasting. But first, let me show you the specific incidents that have really upset Tommy supporters, which were broadcast on Peter Cardwell's weekend show. Watch this one first.
Thank you to everybody online who has been in touch, including all those people who are saying that I'm a liar and that Tommy Robinson isn't a racist. I mean, he is. Just, do some basic research and you'll find out. So thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including those people who've been horrible, and some who haven't been horrible, some who've been totally respectful and just saying they disagree with me, and that's okay. If we disagree without being disagreeable.
It actually got even better, because then a caller confronted Peter Cardwell live on air. The producers, because I know, having worked at Talk Radio, they have one of those dump buttons, which means that they can actually delay what goes out. They can effectively censor a call who might make a comment that they feel is unpalatable or challenges the host in some way. So they started doing that, but I will give credit to Peter Cardwell. He actually said, no, I want to have the conversation. Watch what happened.
Oh, no, don't take her off. Don't take her off. It's okay. It's all right. Deb, sorry, go ahead. Say that again.
I think it's about time that you apologise for calling Tommy Robinson a racist, which he's not. I don't know whether you have any evidence of that at all. And also, there's actually a demonstration going on outside your studios right now. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not, actually, Debs, but thank you for letting me know. Thanks for your call. Appreciate that. Now then, Wayne says...
I don't think he did appreciate it, and let's just say what was going on outside the News UK offices was quite something. This is Based and Bougie, who is quite a rising star in Tommy Robinson's world, because she is a young black woman who very much supports him. She was part of the demonstration. Watch.
That he was a far-right, racist, Islamophobic extremist. And me being 11 years old and very impressionable, I believed it. Until maybe 12, 14 years later, I decided, he came up on my FYP, and I decided to just watch an interview. It was just a 1-hour interview. So as I was watching the interview, I was waiting to hear that right-wing, extremist, Islamophobic, racist comment, and I couldn't hear anything. So I decided to watch a second interview, waiting for that right-wing, extremist, Islamophobic comment, still couldn't hear anything. I decided to watch a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth interview, and I still couldn't find this character that they painted Tommy Robinson out to be. Now, I'm a very curious individual, so when I'm intrigued by something, nothing will stop me from exploring it. And after watching a couple of Tommy Robinson's interviews, I realized that this man was on a mission, not to create an all-white Britain, but to actually protect Britain and to protect children. That's it.
Mick Tanconi, the leader of the UKIP party, was also there with a very strong message to both Peter Cardwell and Piers Morgan.
Oh, no, don't take her off. Don't take her off. It's okay. It's all right.
Relationships, they're slandering. During lockdown, it was no different if you didn't comply, if you didn't wear a mask. And who pushed that agenda? None other than pig vomit in there, Piers Morgan. And as for you, Cardwell, calling Robinson a racist, you owe the British public and Tommy Robinson an apology.
And while Tommy Robinson is behind bars, his account on X posted Peter Cardwell should hang his head in shame for making such ridiculous, false and dangerous claims while live on air. Okay, Father Calvin Robinson, I guess we both have a bit of a soft spot for talk, right? I mean, you were a big part of it. I hosted the Drive Time show there during 2020, but I'd been there for a few years beforehand. Personal friends with Julia Hartley-Brewer, Mike Graham, Alex Phillips. Not that that necessarily means that I agree with everything they say. I don't know Peter Cardwell, but I see him popping up all the time on the BBC, Father Calvin, and I have my suspicions that he's one of these guys, and we know these guys, Calvin, because we knew many of them at GB News, who are using a platform like Talk or GB News to actually get where they really want to get to, which is the MSM, wanting to work for the BBC or Sly News or something like that. Am I being unfair?
I think possibly a little bit. I, like you, also have a soft spot for talk, yeah. And the thing I like about it is that, so Julia Hartley-Brewer, who I adore, is anti-religion, right? She's anti-Christian, yet we still get on. So we're still able to have a friendship and have conversations without agreeing on every single thing, even things that are core to my being. That's old-fashioned liberalism. And so that's what talk managed to do for the most part. Peter Cardwell I like on a personal level. He helped train me up back in the day, but he wasn't even on air anymore, but he was still somehow on their payroll. I don't know what his official role was. But I think what he's fallen foul of here is the thing that many of us do, in that the narrative for so long has been Tommy Robinson racist, that you just believe it without checking. And I've tweeted Peter to ask him what evidence he has, because he's so dismissive there. He's like, well, of course Tommy Robinson's racist. Do some basic research. But the question is, okay, so what basic research have you done, Peter? Have you just drank the Kool-Aid and listened to the propaganda? If so, perhaps he needs to do his own research. And then I would like for him to apologize. I do think he is man enough to say I was wrong on that. That's what I'm hoping. But let's see if he at least engages.
He's doubling down.
But has he taken the time to do any research and have a conversation with anyone? Let's get him on your show, or I'll go on his show, or let's get him to actually speak about why he believes this without any evidence.
But see, this is what's interesting, Calvin, and I give real credit to Alex Phillips, because even though she still has an MSM job, she's trying to carve out a career quite rightly in the independent space. She's launched her Substack. She came here the other day. She admitted that she had previously got it wrong about Tommy Robinson. She also said, I mean, we spoke about it at the time, but she also said, actually, people in the mainstream media are too gutless to talk about him. Now, I think because we have both been in the mainstream media, Calvin, we should explain how this works, because you tried multiple times at GB News to get Tommy Robinson on air. But at GB News, it's almost like you end up on a banned list. And when you're on that banned list, which, by the way, we both are now, they pretend that you don't exist. Yeah. So it's not that they even have a debate about you, which I wouldn't mind, like have the debate and say Father Calvin's terrible on this, or Tommy Robinson's wrong on this, or Katie Hopkins is wrong on this, and also say when we're right as well. But in fact, what they do, Calvin, and this is why we know they're part of the mainstream media, they deperson the people who they have cancelled. It's like if you watch GB News, Tommy Robinson doesn't exist unless there was a very, very brief mention of him being jailed. Same with Katie Hopkins. Same with you. Same with Lawrence Fox. Same with me.
I tried very hard to get all of them on GB News, actually. I thought, I've been granted my own show. Fantastic. I can get whoever I like on. No. And there's a blacklist. But I never saw the blacklist. So people that were blackballed were put on this blacklist that only producers would see. And it's supposed to be that the producers are helping the presenter with their show, but it seemed that quite a lot of the time they thought they were puppet masters, and they thought they were there to hold us back from speaking too much truth. I even at one point got permission from the CEO to get Katie Hopkins on my show, yet I still couldn't do it. I've got permission from the top boss, and I still couldn't get her on.
And what was the reason given?
The producers would just say, no, it's not happening. And I'm like, well, what can I do about that? I'll push back as much as I can. I tried to get Tommy Robinson on, but of course that was never going to happen. I tried to get Cole Benjamin on, who I think is quite moderate. He's a reasonable centrist, bless him. Yeah, he's a good man. But they said, no, not happening. And so when they say no, there's very little you can do other than throw a tantrum, and that gets you nowhere. So,
and the point is, if you are one of these presenters in the mainstream media, even if you agree with Tommy Robinson or Katie Hopkins, it's probably just not worth you speaking out, right? That's how they would think. Oh, let's just keep quiet on this. It's not worth the hassle, which is why I give huge credit for Alex Phillips actually interviewing Tommy Robinson on her independent platform, talking about Tommy Robinson on this platform in very positive terms while she still has a show on Talk TV, because honestly, Calvin, it does make her vulnerable for cancellation.
And we can assume that if Alex Phillips, bless her, I love her, she's great, if she has interviewed him on her private platforms, we can assume that she's tried to at least get him onto her professional platform too. And if that hasn't happened, we can also assume that someone at Talk does not want it to happen.
Oh, no, 100%. 100%. You're not allowed to have Tommy Robinson on Talk. You're not.
So they can sit there and slander him all day.
It's a mainstream media company. You're just not allowed to do it because
they can have Peter Cardwell slander him all day. They can have people libeling him all day, calling him this, that, and the other, but they can't get him on to give his fair share. That's not right, is it?
Well, it's not right, Calvin, when they put Ash Sarkar on, one of the most racist people, I would argue, in Britain. You know, they have absolutely... Or Dr. Scholar, for example. I mean... You know, I don't believe in deplatforming anyone. As you know, I had Narinder Kaur on the show the other day to debate with her over the Catherine tweets, because I don't believe that people should be deplatformed at all. But I'm sorry, there is a complete hypocrisy when you say that it's absolutely fine to have hard left race baiters or straight out racists on air, but not a Tommy Robinson or a Katie Hopkins. And the Katie Hopkins thing is fascinating because, I mean, when I was first at The Sun, she was a completely mainstream figure. She had her weekly newspaper column there. She had a show on LBC. She then moved to the Mail Online. So, you know, how can someone be considered completely palatable to the mainstream media in 2016, but by 2024 be so revolting in their view that her name must not even be uttered?
Yeah, it's because they don't. These lefties don't want conversations. They want their own narrative parroted out, and that's why, you know, Jeremy Vine has a panel of 2 or 3 hard left people, and people like this, Channel 5 and all these mainstream platforms, they love it when the rest of us kick off about it because it gets them a load of traction and people are talking about their rubbish shows again. But it's just bad journalism. It's bad for all of us. Can we go back to having actual conversations and open debates in good faith rather than shouting over each other and all that nonsense that we see now?
Yeah, but Father Calvin, we cannot ever trust the mainstream media again to have those conversations. We can't. And I think we absolutely can trust the independent media to have these conversations. What the concern is for all of us is where we're allowed to have these conversations. Because if Elon Musk hadn't purchased X, Katie Hopkins would not have an account. Graham Linehan would not have an account. And certainly there's no way Tommy Robinson would have an account. Often having these conversations on YouTube will see you be demonetized. I think that's what happened with your interview with Tommy, or certainly other. I know other people like Maya Tusi who interviewed Tommy. They get demonetized as a result.
I've got a very small YouTube channel, but my interview with Tommy Robinson is the biggest hitter on my channel, and it's demonetized. And they put these warnings on there about incendiary person or something like that. It's like, well, how is he incendiary? He's just speaking common sense. Again, it just doesn't fit the left-wing narrative. It's terrible. But this isn't just mainstream media. This is everything. You know, I got attacked by the Professor Kehinde Andrews, who called me a coon, house Negro, Uncle Tom. That his video on YouTube is fine. No comments there. That's perfectly acceptable. Funny coincidence, by the way, that his Black Studies course at Birmingham City University is no longer being taken up. It's being...
Oh my goodness! I saw you post on this. So tell me everything. Is this finally sort of like woke exiting the stage in academia, or is that far too positive to think?
I think he's reaping what he sowed, in that he has a course that is literally teaching people critical race theory, and no one's choosing that course. And so the university is saying, well, we're going to stop funding it because we can't fund it indefinitely if no one's selecting it. And he's like, well, this is racism. It's because we have a white chancellor. This, that. It's like, no, stop peddling your race agenda. Nobody wants it. It's toxic. It's divisive. It's tearing this country apart. Go do something productive with your life.
And of course, he's the BFF of Prince Harry and Meghan, of course. Carver, look, I want to end on something fun. Darren Grimes brought my attention to this. He posted on X saying, Paul Cleary, a 71-year-old pensioner who volunteers as Santa every year, has been sacked for sharing a jokey social media post comparing Keir Starmer to an elf. Yes, seriously. And Santa himself Paul Cleary went on GB News to have this discussion with Martin Daubney.
I've been accused of sending racist and or derogatory remarks on my Facebook page about the Labour government. So I received a letter from the trust where I volunteered as Santa.
Into any details, I understand that the post was about comparing Keir Starmer to an elf. Is that right? So was it an elf and safety issue?
It was an elf with Keir Starmer's face on it in front of number 10, but the 10 was the I and O in idiot.
Right. I mean, you know, it's not the kind of thing that Santa would normally say, but it's a free country, and for Santa got the sack.
Yeah.
Look, mate, you've been a great sport.
Life goes on, and another charity are going to benefit.
Father Calvin, your reaction?
Martin Daubney getting all the puns in there. Elf and safety. Santa got the sack. Oh dear, what's daytime TV become? But yeah, I mean, that poor chap getting sacked for just commenting on a social media platform about the government. Who isn't commenting about the government right now? The government is awful. It's got nothing to do with him sitting there playing Santa in front of the kids. He's not going to tell the kids, like, Keir Starmer's stolen your presents this year. I mean, come on, it's got nothing to do with it.
But it's all about stopping us having conversations, even if you are Santa. Father Calvin Robinson, absolutely brilliant to have you. We will speak next week.
God bless.
Thank you so much. Now, coming up in the Uncancelled Aftershow, Samantha Markle gives an exclusive broadcast interview about her sister Meghan as she turns 60 and suffers from the loss of her mother. You know, it's very important to me that we have a safe space not patrolled by big tech where censorship and control runs deep. So that's why I've launched www.outspoken.live, our membership section where you get half an hour of extra content every day. So at this stage, we come off YouTube and Rumble and move to our own platform to continue our conversation in the Uncancelled Aftershow. All you have to do is sign up at www.outspoken.live. And today, today, there is a 30% off Black Friday sale, which is our biggest ever sale. So if you can support me and support this independent media revolution, I would be so grateful. However, it's really important that you sign up either way, because then you're part of the family and we can continue the conversation. So www.outspoken.live. It is entirely possible to sign up for free because I know how difficult these times are. We are back live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I promise to keep fighting for you, and I look forward to seeing you on the after show on Substack in just one moment with Samantha Markle.